What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Rules of Engagement Talking Tactics. We just went over how to use Mutalisk in Zerg versus Protoss. Now we're going to talk about how the best defense is often a good offense in Terran vs. Terran, taking a look at Last versus Puma. There's three main concepts we're going to talk over when we're going over how you can use offense to be good defense. The first idea is that you want to minimize the amount of defense. The second idea is then going to be to make sure you have map awareness. Then, of course, the last thing is going to be to be able to have aggressive posturing on the map. So when we jump into the game here, we'll talk about minimizing defense. So as we're coming in here, one thing, we're in a situation looking from Last's point of view. Last has opened up with just a normal gasless barracks build. He's probably opting to go one barracks gasless expansion, but decided, but what went wrong here is all of a sudden he's seen that there's this proxy barracks, and he looked for that because he noticed his opponent had gas in his base, but no buildings. This often indicates one Rax Marauder, or sometimes Reaper, but usually it's going to be Marauder. Now there's one thing he realizes. He scouts his barracks. As we play this out, we can look at through his point of view. He's scouting around. He realizes, you know what? I can hold this proxy Marauder push with a single Marine in a bunker. That's all I need. So these first two Marines I made, I don't need them to defend. Why don't I go and get some extra value from these units? So we get out of his view because he's a pretty quick player, jumping around a little bit. We're going to fast forward a bit. You can see he's making sure his opponent can't wall off. He's going to try a little bit of a bunker rush here. And of course, meanwhile, this bunker, when a Marauder tried to walk up, he just got shot a couple times, realizes he can't get past the bunker. And there's two Marauders, there's going to be two Marines in the bunker. Either way, he's going to be able to hold this Marauder push without a problem. Meanwhile, he's going to get some extra value out of these two units. So he's coming here doing a little bit of a bunker rush. One thing that would have been nice is maybe to see him play it like he would for a Zerg with the Marines tucked behind the bunker so the SCVs couldn't get at him. But regardless, he's doing a lot of damage as far as mining time lost. He's even killing a couple of SCVs. Puma will clean this up with looks like only 2 SCV losses, so it wasn't really that big a deal. It didn't really work as much as he wanted to. But the idea was there, and perhaps if he was able to tuck the Marines behind a building, it could have been much more effective getting 2 supply depot kills before Puma could have gotten his units back and able to defend against it. So the idea is you want to minimize your defense so you have extra units you can throw on the attack. That doesn't really go in with the slogan, but it's one important concept. As you go through this game, it's going to basically progress into a standard, normal game. Last is going to opt to go for basically expansion and then bio play. We're actually watching his screen at X8 speed right now, so he's a pretty quick player jumping around there. Get another expansion going bio. Meanwhile, if we jump over to the Puma cam, we're going to see Puma has just playing, he's going for mech play, right? We can see up here in the production tab. Let's actually jump into the non-glitchy cam. He's going, Raven, 3 Hellions at a time, a lot of factories, and then Last is just taking the third base, going standard bio play. Now the next thing he's going to do, knowing that his opponent hasn't taken the third yet, it's likely his opponent is going to go for timing. There's a pretty common timing in TVT off of 4 barracks, 2 with tech labs, 2 with reactors, a bunch of Hellions, a bunch of tanks. It's a 2-base mech timing that players use to kind of try to take advantage of the fact that when you're playing against mech, you often play a bit greedy because you expect the mech player to be very passive. And so Puma's developed this timing to say, you know what, if he's going to be extra passive, I can hit him with this timing, reinforcing 4 Hellions at a time and overrun him. It's timing used by a lot of players. I mean, Flash, all the top Terrans have used this timing from time to time. It can be very, very strong. So Last is going to be stuck on the defensive. He doesn't know this yet, though. And the most important thing for him right now is to get map awareness. And the reason why that's so important, it's always important, but it's especially important now because he needs to know where his opponent's army is, because then with that knowledge, he can know how to deal with it. If his opponent's army is very small and moves out, he can just crush it with an attack. If it's overwhelmingly large, then he wants to counterattack using the offense to defend himself. And if it's kind of like a medium size, a little bit too strong to squash, but not so big that he wants to try to risk a base trade, then he can try to buy time by doing feints and small attacks. So in all 3 of those cases, the best way to defend is by attacking, but it's deciding what to attack. Should you attack your opponent's army? Should you attack your opponent's base, or should you just try to pretend to attack your opponent's army, scare them to buy some time until you can then eventually overrun it? So we can see here, he's got a Marine over, making sure nothing's going along the right side. He's got another Marine here, making sure there's no third base being taken, and of course he's got the watchtower as well. Puma just took that back, but he's very quick on retaking it. So the instant that Puma leaves his base, he's going to be on top of it, and Last is going to know exactly what type of army Puma has and how he should respond to that. So as it comes time for Puma to finally move out here, Last then scans. He sees kind of what he's dealing with. He sees it's going to be a mech army, you know, tanks, Hellions. He knows now, because of the quantity of Hellions, that it's a 2-base mech push. And this is a very scary push. If we take a look at the army tab, we can see Puma's going mech. And Puma has a larger army value than Last. He's got roughly the same in minerals, but he's got 400 more in gas. So Last is at a pretty big disadvantage. But in army pure strength, he's got disadvantage. But the one thing that we can look at the Last has is one. Last has twice the economy of Puma right now, because Puma pulled all these SCVs. Last has twice the income of Puma. The other thing we can take a look at is that if you look at the production, Last has 3 barracks here, 3 barracks here, a factory and a starport. That's 8 production buildings. Puma is only producing out of 4, or I guess 5 if you count the other starport. So 4 to 5, which means Last has about twice the production of Puma and twice the economy. Because of these two things, Last wants to delay the engagement as long as possible because he reinforces so much faster than Puma does. So this is where aggressive posturing is very important. It's a way of attacking without actually getting into combat. This is something that you see a lot actually in different animals when they're fighting over territory, because they don't want to risk dying, but they want to kind of show who's bigger and stronger. It's this aggressive posturing idea where you move around and you try to stall your opponent out or just convince them that you're too strong to take on. So you can see he's wrapping around the corner here. And the whole idea is he's trying to bait out sieges and point defense drones to delay Puma's push. So it works. Puma puts on a point defense drone, he sieges up, but Last is already backed out there using the stem, but he has a decent medevac count, so it's not that big a deal. Now Puma has to unsiege and move up again, but Puma's stuck in a quandary. Because when Last retreated, he didn't go back up to his main, he went down. This is again an aggressive posture. Puma has to be worried that if he unsieges, or if he unsieges and pushes straight forward, he'll be caught in a massive flank. Normally, when your opponent's trying to run around you and threaten flanks, the standard approach is you want to run down that army and trap it. So Puma is now saying, you know what? I don't want to risk moving forward and being caught by SCVs and rally units from one side, then a flank from the other. So I'm going to try to run down his army, force it to stem, force it to get weaker, and Last will have a hard time running away because the Hellions are faster, and every time the medevacs will die to Vikings. So it's a great move by Puma to do this type of trying to run down and trap the army. It's a standard counter to someone trying to aggressively posture like Last is doing. But what it also does, while it's a standard counter, it still accomplishes Last objective. He loses a few guys, sure, but he's actually trading decently. He's killing a lot of SCVs, and meanwhile he's buying even more time. Puma, it feels like he has to siege again. Now he has to push again, and meanwhile Last now has a couple tanks to defend. He's been able to rebuild his army, heal up most of it, and he feels, okay, I delayed this push long enough to now, if we look at the army supply, now it's roughly the same gap it was before, but they're both smaller numbers. And if they're both smaller numbers, that means the rallied reinforcements play a bigger role, right? And also one thing to note is that the army values are roughly the same amount apart as they were before, but the harvester count is now 20 apart. So Puma's army is effectively much weaker than it was before because he's lost so many SCVs, and those aren't reflected in army value, but they are going to be very, very important in the battle that's going to come forward here. So now Puma says, you know what? I went to attack at the 15-minute mark. It's now the 16-20-minute mark, which means he's gotten 3 sets of rallied units out of these barracks, which is a lot of units when you got 6 barracks. But I still got to go because time is still against me. But at this point, Last, with his aggressive posturing, has been able to buy enough time that he can just overrun Puma's army. It's a fairly close fight, but with the medevac drop on top of the tanks, the rallied reinforcements, the fact that Puma no longer has that mass amount of SCVs to tank for him, Last is able to defend this push and therefore go on to win the game. Of course, Puma's just going to concede here, knowing that pretty much all his eggs are in this one basket. You take a look at economy, He's got like, less than half the workers. He's a base down, massive amounts of production down, and lasts is almost twice his food. So to recap on the idea here of the best defense is often a good offense, the three most important things is one, knowing exactly how much defense you need to hold any given point. So if your opponent attacks you and you only need a certain amount of units, don't make more, right? From the Zerg perspective, those extra units could have been drones. From a Terran or a Protoss perspective, those extra units could actually be counterattacking your opponent and doing good damage. Or perhaps you can make enough units that you can actually run down their attacking force and totally destroy it instead of just defending it. The next part is the map awareness, and that's very important because while it is true that often the best defense is a good offense, the type of offense is going to be very different. You might want to go for a base trade. You might want to try to just attack the army as it moves out, catch them when they're going to be off guard because they're not expecting you to attack them when they're going out for an attack. Or you might want to do what lasted there, which is aggressive posturing to buy time until your superior production can kick in. Which is actually the third point was about how to do that aggressive posturing. You can threaten an engagement that'll force him to siege or unsiege, or in a different matchup, just force him to pull the units back on the concave. Maybe force the Protoss to throw some force fields out. Maybe force the Zerg to make roaches more earlier than they want to. Force them to throw out the infested Terrans and back away, and they have less energy than they would, less energy in the later engagement than they would have. There's a lot of reasons why it's good. And then of course when you retreat, as long as you have a mobile army, you can retreat in a way that would set up a flank and make your opponent afraid of a flank, so they have to deal with that kind of commando army behind him before they can continue their push. So those are the three basic ideas of how to use offense to make a good defense. We're going to take a quick break, then we're going to get back on to a Protoss replay talking about how perseverance can be a very important skill set in StarCraft 2.